1955, a group of 50 Porsche enthusiasts came together and formed the framework of what is now the Porsche Owners Club, where racers built competition across some of California's most historic tracks. Now the oldest club in North America goes virtual for a 10-round iRacing series, opening up at the home of the most coveted race on the IMSA Sports Car Championship circuit, Daytona International Speedway's road course. Glad to have you along for the ride on the Global Sim Racing Channel. I'm Devin Henry, and with me in the booth is Nick Schmeg. Behind the scenes is our director, Joe Peak, and he's using cameras provided by Dougie Beard. Before we get the action going, let's take a look at how to get around the Daytona road course with our GSRC lap guide.
Welcome to the Daytona International Speedway. While many oval fans associate this Central Florida track with mainly NASCAR, the road course has gained just as much worldwide fame thanks to it hosting motorcycles and sports cars for decades. In fact, the flagship road race, the 24 Hours of Daytona, has become a major draw for drivers of all disciplines, many eager to have a go at endurance racing. The stats make this place sound relatively simple, with 12 turns spread among 3.5 miles. Indeed, a majority of the lap is spent on the oval portion, where you fly along the notoriously steep banking. But it's easy to underestimate the challenge presented to the drivers. The infield portion begins with the scary kinked entry of Turn 1. Not only is it the fastest part of the track, but the transition from the banking to the flat tends to upset the car as you slow it down. There's also the bus stop chicane on the backstretch. Added in the 80s, this is a tricky piece of circuit that punishes a poor exit severely, with it leading back into the latter half of the oval. As you'd expect, the long periods on throttle mean that drafting tends to play a factor in the racing. It also means passing isn't usually too great of an issue if you have the pace to catch someone. The more difficult thing is managing to gap your opponent so that they don't ride in your slipstream once you get by. With half a century of endurance racing collected among these walls, it's not unfair to say that road racers have just as much claim to call Daytona home. Fans who come to watch certainly won't be disappointed by the high speeds and fantastic thrills it invariably provides each year.
Well, it's a new season and a new track for this series. Nick, why don't you take us through a little bit about Daytona International Speedway?
Yeah, Devin, thank you. It's a track that really needs no introduction. Like you said, it's IMSA's most coveted circuit on their schedule. It's same with NASCAR. Definitely between the Daytona 24 Hours and the Daytona 500. We are using the road course today, just the classic road course. It's 3.5 miles, 5.7 kilometers. It's got 12 turns, which, is not too much. So a lot of this is straightaway. It's up on the banking, up on the oval like NASCAR uses. The draft here is huge. The multi-class action tonight, lots of room for them to work out, but it is that infield section that they are going to have to be so careful. The Western Horseshoe, and then the bus stop on the backstretch. We've seen so many races get thrown away there, and with just a 30-minute race tonight, they're going to have to be careful.
And 30 minutes, I mean, compared to what they're doing last season, it was a 4-race sprint last season for this series, but those were like hour-long races. Now it's just a half hour. Now, that's still some time there, but do you really need to start pumping up the intensity a little bit extra when it comes to just a 30-minute race?
Well, they are definitely going to have to race hard. One tiny mistake here is going to be that could throw everything away, because you're just not going to have the recovery time like you see in a longer race, even a longer sprint race that's only 45 minutes or an hour. They get a lot more time to think, to sort things out, to get comfortable, and even to have a pit stop. We're not going to see any of that tonight.
As we mentioned, this here is the start of a brand new season for this series, first of 10 races. But hey, I'll tell you what, there is quite a bit at stake, and the reason why, because the champion of this series, I believe it is, will actually be recognized and awarded at the annual Porsche Owners Club Banquet next January. So you want your name called. This is a series that actually most of these guys do race in some way, shape, or form out in California, and you want your name called at that banquet, even if, hey, it's the first long-form iRacing series when it comes to the POC.
Yeah, absolutely. And we've got some race details to go over as well for this race. We already mentioned that it's 30 minutes long. A lot at stake here, but they've got a lot of incident points to play with as well. 17 actually that they are going to have to deal with today. That'll get you a penalty, and then every 5 will get you a penalty. They've got 2 fast repairs, so everyone should be able to finish this race. And it is the first race of the season. It's a 10-race season that's going to be racing on every other Monday night here on the Global Sim Racing Channel. We're glad to have them here, and we're glad to see that they've branched out farther than just the West Coast. Although that West Coast swing was a lot of fun, it's awesome to see them on a little bit more of a traditional sports car schedule now.
Of course, as it should be, this season will conclude once again at Auto Club Speedway. So it's a home track race for the championship. But first and foremost, you have to get to the championship, and it all starts here tonight. Looking back at last season, at that championship at Auto Club Speedway, Matt Hollander took the win in the GT3, and then James McLaughlin sat on top of the podium in the GT4 class. Obviously having 2 different types of cars here, 2 very different speeds. Who needs to be checking the rear view mirror a little bit extra as we go through the track here?
Well, there's a lot of big names from last season, but last season was only 4 races, and not everyone was able to participate in last season's in all 4 of last season's races. Gregory LeFou, who sits on top of the board right now in qualifying, that's a big name to watch out for. And then the fact that we have 2 different classes here. We've got the GT3 class, which is a Pro-Am class. You're either qualified to get into that with a certain iRating standard that you have to meet, or whether you are a real-life driver in the professional or semi-professional racing world. Then you've got the GT4 class, which has names like Jacob Abrams on top, Savak Fajarian, we saw big time in the last couple of races. All those drivers, they've got a lot of momentum. They're gonna have to be careful.
15 entries right now on track in the GT3s, with another 17 entries in the GT4. So a grand total of 32 cars using up this 3.5-mile course. And this is a track where when you hit the bus stop, I mean, drafting does play in effect. No, there are no NASCARs, but I mean, just look at the body, look at the rear spoilers on these things. You can get caught up from behind very quickly, and all of a sudden going into that bus stop on the back straightaway, you might have a little bit of a surprise waiting for you if you're not checking that rear view mirror enough.
Yeah, absolutely. And these drivers are all going to have to be careful, but they wouldn't even be able to be here if it weren't for some very gracious and generous sponsors coming along for the Porsche Owners Club Championship this season. We've got a couple of them for you today, presenting today's action on screen. It's first, Sunset Mortgage. Don't put your money in the bank, be the bank. Check them out today at sunsetcash.net. We're also provided, the coverage today also provided by Octavio Tequila. Celebrate now for a great tasting tequila to go to octaviatequila.com to purchase today. Last but not least, Century Financial Consultants brings you the action on screen, making the rest of your life the best of your life. You can check out their website at centuryretire.com.
A big thank you to all those supporters of not just here in the virtual world, but also, I mean, there's so many supporters of these drivers when they actually get to race in the real world as well. But of course, in some crazy times that we have right now, some of the competitive wheel-to-wheel races aren't as seen quite as much, and so we get to be able to have some fun here on iRacing. A huge thank you to those partners to let us also broadcast that and bring you guys some of the action that's going to happen here at Daytona. We talked about how it is a 10-race season, and Nick, this is arguably the most important race, being the opener. But exactly how important is it to just not have to use a fast repair tonight?
Well, like I mentioned, thankfully they've got 2 fast repairs, and I hate to be the driver that has to use 2 fast repairs in a 30-minute race, but you'd be surprised with a field this big, and everyone just getting a little bit antsy to start the season. Wouldn't be too surprised if we saw drivers having to take both of those fast repairs. You don't want to, though, Devin, because this is the first race of the season. You want to get off on a strong, solid foot. You want to make a statement. You want to put your name out there, and you want to ultimately get that momentum that leads you into Sebring in a couple of weeks, and just start the season strong. And like we see so many drivers right now already putting up strong times, but you definitely want to get started off on the right foot here.
Lafoy right now out front, 1 minute 46 seconds. That is the time to beat right now in the GT3 category for qualifying. Jacob Abrams still at the top of the GT4s. And obviously, all racing is about making adjustments. The track changes, the tire changes, the fuel tank has less fuel in it, and the rear end of the car is different. But what's going to be the number one thing today, Nick, that these drivers are going to be fighting against in this 30-minute race and will have to adjust to?
Well, I think there's the biggest thing they're going to have to get is staying in that slipstream, staying in the draft. Nothing here at Daytona is more important. If you get caught up in a battle in the mid-pack, you are no longer racing for the win, especially just in a 30-minute race. It is in the afternoon, and of course, you've got all the different factors. A couple moments ago, we saw the weather and how the track temperature was 117 degrees Fahrenheit. Lots of, they're not going to have too much grip out there, but at the same time, that might not be their biggest concern in just a 30-minute race. They are just going to have to keep this car clean. They'll be there at the end, but they've got to. If you want to finish first, you've got to first finish.
Lucky for them, this isn't Auto Club Speedway. There's not going to be 2,000 chicanes in the infield. There's just the bust up on the back straightaway. But as you mentioned, the infield of Daytona is also extremely tough in its own right. Now, once you get out to the NASCAR oval, it gets a little bit more technical in terms of drafting and whatnot. But what is the more technical part of the infield? The braking zone, or where you need to get back up on your throttle?
Well, all of it ultimately is crucial. And you mentioned how these drivers are coming from Auto Club Speedway and the road course there, but here you see Renning Bruns in qualifying. He's right now second place in the GT3 class, and that turn that he just went through, that might be the most crucial. Pretty much any roval, it seems nowadays, that first turn coming off the fast bank of the NASCAR oval onto the completely flat surface. Not only does it unsettle the car, it sets up a great passing opportunity, a sketchy passing opportunity, albeit, but a good one. And it's both a good passing zone and a danger zone, in the commentator's handbook. And they've got to be so careful. Renning Bruns, he's going to get one last lap in here. Driver out of California, as many of these drivers are. But currently, man, he's got half a second back to Gregory LeFougue. He is looking so quick in that 19 car.
And probably the toughest part is the fact that you have, as you see right now, such a ginormous amount of banking in these corners and on the tri-oval, and then you have to readjust, and you just got to go, okay, the rest of the track is flat. Remember, everything in the infield is flat. There's no banking to help you out in the corners, and it's a completely different change in atmosphere, if you will, when you're having to change your mindset from, okay, I'm in the banking right now in the tri-oval or in turn 3 and 4, and now, okay, slow things back down and get into a more road racer mentality than a NASCAR mentality.
Absolutely. Here, riding on board with Michael Ost, who sits third place right now overall in the GT4s. You can just see just how harsh that transition from the banking down to the flat is, and then up onto the banking once again. But West, not going to have an improvement there of the lap. He's 7/10 slower that time by.
Watch out for those rear ends. You do not want those to kick out, as we're watching Rob Crocker now, 13th in the GT3 category, running down the back straightaway. The final minutes here of qualifying. These cars had 1 hour to set their final practice times, then a half hour here of group qualifying before we get to our 30-minute race, the first race of a 10-round series here on GSRC. And, of course, we have our two Porsches here on the iRacing platform.
One of those Porsches being driven by Connor Bloom, who has gone back up to second with that lap. He knocks Renning Bruns down to the second row. That's going to be big because Bloom and LeFougue, both very quick in season number 1. That's going to be fantastic. A fantastic place for him to start up on the front row on the outside heading into turn number 1.
And that was interesting because we didn't see a heck of a lot of movement going through that starting order, the qualifying grid, if you will, throughout that qualifying session. Towards the start of it, everyone put in their lap, but how about Bloom there throwing in a last-second haymaker?
Yeah, absolutely. Got the tires warmed up nicely, but Devin, it looks like that he was the last car on track as well. It looks like we've got our grid set.
Looks like our grid is set here for race number 1 of the Porsche Owners Club season. Starting on the front row, of course, we're starting with those GT3 911s. Gregory LeFougue will start off on pole. Connor Bloom in second. Renning Bruns starts off in third. Eric Ovlat will start in fourth. Row number 3, Nielsen Lawrence in fifth. Matt Hollander in sixth. Thomas Bolo in 7th, Bayan Salhi in 8th, Michael Bolton in 9th, and Justin Krickenberg rounds out your top 10.
Some more GT3s behind them. Alan Stad and Dominic Cicero going to be making up row number 6, Baker's dozen spot. The 777, that's going to be Rob Crocker next to Sean Horvath in the 661. Then the last GT3 on the grid there is going to be Jim Slavic. Then you've got to jump over to the GT4s because the pole position there is going to go to Jacob Abrams, Paul Newton, and Michael West, who will start 1, 2, 3 over there. Behind West, you're going to see Savak Fajarian, BJ Fulton making up that next row. Jad Duncan, Michael Robin, Jonathan Brell, Ron Palmer will round out the top 26. Then some drivers who didn't even get to set times in practice in the pre-race warm-up. They have a little less track time on them. Peter Latier, Chris Lewis, and Dustin Heindel. Then you jump back to 30th overall. You've got Mark Rondeau, John Maumeyer, Doug Bacandone, and Ted Brokenberg. Right in front of Lane McNeil. Don't want to forget about him. That's 34 cars on this grid. And I'm looking to see if they're starting the GT3s that didn't qualify at the back, or if they're going to get jumped up. It doesn't look like any of them have even gridded, so I don't think that's going to be a problem.
Still a very large field here tonight to open up our first race of the series. Cars out front still waiting, and we're just about everyone about gridded up here, and we're about ready to go. First race of the year as the grid gets ready to roll on off here.
They've got a shortened pace lap. You see them line up on the backstretch, and it gives you a sense with 34 cars just how long that backstretch is. And it's crazy to think that this is a shortened version of what NASCAR runs. That's just massive. They're facing towards that bright neon yellow arrow pointing left, just in case they forget to turn there, which we'll see in a moment. That they're following, fittingly, that iRacing, a Porsche pace car, through the bus stop.
Absolutely. You see all up front those GT3s. And you mentioned this track, it's a shortened version, quote unquote. So 3.5 miles every single lap. Of course, over a minute long length for 30 minutes. So probably somewhere around 17-ish laps, which if you're on an oval or something, not a big deal. But here, I mean, probably to these guys who race in real life, it doesn't feel like an endurance event, but man, still 30 minutes sometimes can feel like a lot.
Absolutely. They're about to come out of turn number 4. It's going to be on the loud pedal and then quickly over to that pedal in the middle for these drivers. And I just hope, Devin, everyone's going to get through cleanly.
Number 1 is always fun to watch. Gregory LaFougue will start off on the front row in that yellow Porsche. Then Rennie Bruns on the outsides. The pace car peels off. The first race of a brand new season is underway for the Porsche Owners Club. We are green at Daytona.
Good start up front for Gregory LaFougue. It's a rocket launch away, but it's going to be a little bit sketchy behind him. 3 wide now. What a start that was. Look on the outside. That is Eric Ovia, who's going to have to take to the grass. He now goes over the curbs. Unbelievable, as we've got more contact up front.
Absolute chaos in the back of the field. And Stad looks like it's back there along with a couple other cars. And boy, we are already having ourselves quite a bit of aggression here in the very first lap of this race.
Same for the GT4s. I see Jad Duncan off there, but it's a great start as well from Jacob Abrams. So good start for both our leaders, Abrams and LaFougue, but not so great for the rest of the field that was following closely behind.
Well, I think we had the question answered as to would the intensity ramp up with a race about half as long as last season, and I think that there's some high intensity there going into turn number 1 and 2.
Absolutely. We saw it all unfold.
Gregory LaFougue coming out to a very large lead now to start this thing off. Connor Bloom is kind of fading away behind him now. Second, already over a second lead heading into the bus stop for the first time tonight.
Well, I mentioned that big lead. That's not going to be what he wants to get. Oh, that's some car going off. That's Rennie Bruns, actually, who went straight away out of the bus stop took an escape road, but that is crazy as we see side by side for second Connor Bloom and Nielsen Lawrence, who's come all the way up from 5th.
Lawrence working his way up early, 1.6 seconds behind your leader now and already making some moves. And Connor Bloom going slow right now down the tri-oval.
He is. Not sure what happened to the 95. He might have gotten a slowdown penalty at the exit of the bus stop. Looking back, and I don't think he did. That was certainly close if that's what happened.
Up back to 6th place now. He's keeping up to speed here. The infield at the very least. Now trying to look to the inside. I mean, these are very precision instruments, aerodynamics. And they're not necessarily the most heavy tanks, the iRacing platform, but yeah, that was an interesting circumstances there, dropping from 2nd to 6th. And you don't want to lose time. This is a very important, as we have another car off the track. Looks like another GT4 there. I don't know if just completely missed the corner or what there. Ron Palmer has a little bit of issue there, and this has already taken up the patience of quite a few racers here, and we are only 3 minutes in. Hollander, Thomas Blue, 3rd and 4th here overall, and in the GT3 category as everyone starts to span out a little bit. Bloom in the pink car behind them moved his way back up to 5th.
Great job for Brian Salehi right behind Connor Bloom to get from 8th to 6th. He's already hunting down the 95 of Connor Bloom. Yeah, not quite sure what happened there on the opening lap for the 95 of Connor Bloom, but that pink car, you're right, it went the wrong direction. It was pointed the right direction, just was falling back like a brick. I must have made a mistake somewhere, but not the start that he wanted to his season or to this race. As we take a look at the GT4 lead, which is tightened up. Jacob Abrams still out in front of that thing, but that's Michael West and Savak Fajarian closing in there.
3 pretty dang close here in G3 category, GT4 category, excuse me. Abrams started on pole and down into the tri-oval. There's your drafting. There's your slipstream right there. Michael Oates now trying to make a little bit of a move here. Now, when you get into this infield section, Nick, where are the best places to pass? Because obviously, it's optimal to pass when you're drafting, but how about when it gets in here when we're all tight and narrow?
Well, they've got 3 big opportunities. They've just got to get to them. They're going to get a big run here through the S's and then down into the International Horseshoe. That's going to be their best in their first opportunity. If they can't get it done there, which it doesn't look like any of them are able to, they've got a fast straightaway and a kink here to the left. Then they've got the Western Horseshoe. It's the exact same scenario. Another right hairpin, and then they've got the turn that launches them back out onto the track, turn number 6, which is great. Sometimes you can't get a pass done there, but it's a great exit there. Will set you up for a slingshot maneuver on the oval. That's what Michael West is trying to do right now in the 73 car. He just can't quite get up there. That's actually a GT3 stuck behind him of Alan Stad.
That is your top 3 of the GT3 of the GT4 with the GT3 stuck right there between them in the orange and blue car. And already early from multiple drivers having some misfortune, we get to see what it looks like when these two classes start to intersect.
He's able to get by no problem if the, I should say when the GT3 leaders catch the tail end of the GT4 field. It might look a little bit differently in terms of lap traffic.
Kind of goes ahead and flies by. He's now currently 14th overall in the GT3 category. But back to those Caymans, you see battling right here. Jacob Abrams continues to lead that group of cars. That is the largest class that we have, but boy, there's already been a lot of moving and shaking here that comes to these first 6 minutes of this race.
Oh, a problem up in the GT3's Brian Salehi. I saw him dropping down through the order, and it's that danger zone that we talked about. Turn number 1, getting down onto the flat into the infield section, and the 15 is going to loop it around here.
Leahy had a great opportunity battling in the top 5 now, back to 12th. It's in there, and sometimes if you're just a little too hot, rear end pulls on out. Luckily, if there's one saving grace in that area of the track is there's no grass immediately afterwards if you do happen to run over that corner, but obviously moving back now into 13th overall, 12th in the category, and now this is the toughest part of the race to fall back, because even though you lose the same amount of time as you would later in the race, well, now there's more cars directly in front of you. It feels like you're losing more time. You have an issue this early in the race.
And that's a big help as well. Look back there. That's that pink car that we noticed earlier, Connor Bloom. Not only was he able to get around that problem that Salehi had, but he was able to get around Matt Hollander for third place. I think Hollander actually made a little bit of contact with someone. He's got a crumpled up front end of that Porsche 911. Not what he wants early in this thing. Aero damage, very important to avoid here on such a low downforce track.
Much drafting on this NASCAR part of Daytona International Speedway. That turns into a little bit of an issue, as you can definitely get gapped or caught from behind. But right now, Nielsen Lawrence only second in the category, as we watch out the backside of Connor Bloom to Matt Hollander. These cars right now about 3.5 seconds behind the 19-year leader right now in the GT3 category.
And Gregory LaFougue has had a great race so far. He's got a 1.5 second lead over Nielsen Lawrence, like you just mentioned. And, you know, it's smooth sailing for him so far. We'll have to keep an eye on how that 19 car fares. He certainly didn't fare too well in the 70-minute, I guess you could call it, endurance race format that they had in Season 1 at Auto Club. But looks like he's gotten all that dust shaken off, and he's back here ready to go.
Baloo behind Matt Hollander, now catching up to Connor Bloom. Three-way battle here for the third position as they're about to back out onto the NASCAR portion of this track.
And a pass for the GT4 lead as well. Savak Fajarian in the International Horseshoe. He's able to duck underneath Jacob Abrams. Michael West sitting in the sitting back, watching it all happen, as we're going to watch it all happen once again as we go to replay.
Went into turn one here as we get into the narrow portion of the track. We talked about this, and into the S's, and a lot of speed here.
Yeah, a lot of speed, and you don't get too much slipstream there, but a bad corner exit from turn number one is really what is going to hurt Jacob Abrams there. Like you saw, he just wasn't able to carry that momentum down the short straightaway, and he wasn't able to carry it through, and had no choice but to let Fajarian through to the lead. But as we go back to Hollander, look at this, Devin. It's 3 wide as they come across the finish line. That's second place in the GT4s.
Yeah, I'd say there's plenty enough action going on right now as these guys are mixing it up. And just like that, Connor Bloom makes his way back into third place. Hollander and Baloo back behind him, and we'll see if Bloom can continue to march up through the field. But and trying to keep those two back behind him, it'll be tough once they get back out to the NASCAR track again.
Yeah, third place, rather. They are fighting for Connor Bloom. Somehow going to be able to hold on to it, but you were wondering what that slipstream was going to look like. Well, there you go. And that's why the traffic here, if when they catch up to him, it's going to be so crucial, because there's no way you can continue to battle 3 wide when you are trying to get around some slower cars. But it all works out well for Connor Bloom. A little bit of a slide for Thomas Boileau back in 5th place. He continues to try to chase down Matt Hollander, but he certainly seemed to be the slowest of these 3 cars so far in this race.
Another battle a little bit further back on the track, all the way back. Oh, and no contact and into the wall.
That's Michael Roban. He got turned by BJ Fulton. I'm not sure if he got turned or if there was a little bit of bump drafting gone wrong. That was crazy.
That NASCAR tri-oval sure brings a lot of speed and has caused plenty of havoc so far today in this first 10 minutes of this race. 7th, 8th, and 9th now in the GT3 category up towards the front. And boy, these guys are all clusters throughout the track right now. Seems to be the name of the game.
Absolutely. You see a big dive there from those cars in the middle, like Sean Horvath, who's going to get underneath Cicero here for that 7th position. Now we'll see the draft between Michael Bolton and Renning Bruns. Bruns, remember, trying to get back up through the field. They're going to be closing in on that red number 25 car. We'll see. They're going to look underneath. There's not too much room down there. They're going to make it work anyway. Looks like Bruns is going to follow Dominic down there, or that's Michael Bolton down there. And this is going to get interesting into turn number 1. Who's going to give and who's going to take? It looks like Michael Bolton trying to take it all. He's going to get sideways and comes across back in front of Sean Horvath there.
Boy, got a little bit lucky. You never want to make contact, but lost it by himself and got a little bit of help to get that car back straight. Probably one of the few times when you're happy that you might have had a little bit of contact there.
Yeah, it saved him from going into the tire barriers or going around completely. We'll take a look at this again. That is a very colorful picture going down into turn number 1. But just too ambitious, not enough grip down there. Still fairly cold tires and apparently a fairly cold track. Not too much grip, not enough downforce, and just not enough room.
Boy went in there hot. Now Bolton finds himself back in the 10th position, still behind Brun, Sestero, Horvath. Not too far behind, but definitely lost any momentum that he had. And in a 30-minute race, you don't want to wear out your tires too much because that can be pivotal towards the end of the race. One has enough tire on him. Sestero's now looking to catch up to Horvath.
Looks like Dominic Cicero is going to be able to get around and into the bus stop. I see a little bit of front end damage on that orange 661. Oh, and a slide behind. That's running Bruns getting in too hot into the bus stop, and he's going to send that thing straight into the tire barrier.
Bruns went in there with a boatload of speed, and there was no saving that car going into the bus stop. Kind of comes from the drafting here, coming out of 2. Boy, he had a slingshot going.
He did indeed. Apparently it was too much for his own good. We're right on board with him, getting down into the bus stop, trying to get it slowed down. Cars side by side. Probably some hesitation in his mind on where to go, if he should go left or right, on who to follow. And by the time he had that figured out, he was facing the wrong way.
Plenty of damage that he could see on that right front of that car, and that's definitely not going to be any help as this race continues to move on. Look at Michael West now in the 73 GT4 category. He's currently in second, looking to catch up. Garion has the lead still, and Abrams behind him just dropped from first to third.
Yeah, Jacob Abrams, he's going the wrong direction. Savak Vajarian, he has utilized that slipstream perfectly so far. This is interesting, though. He looks to be going a little bit defensive. Now, we've seen these GT4s, just how many draft trains they are able to form, and a bit of a slide there from Michael West as he's trying to come in on Savak Vajarian, who swings it a little bit wide through turn 1. That's going to domino effect and bunch them all up. Now we might see Jacob Abrams dive down low. He's going to get one position, look for a second one, and he's going to be stuck there in second now as they get back going on the acceleration.
Not about 2 for 1, but too good of a corner there for Gary, and he continues to try to make some sort of gap as we are coming up close. Halfway point of this race, on board with third place Michael S. here. All he sees is 2 white bumpers now. Was in second, now trying to make his way back up through first. And even though this is a short race, it brings up the question, how far do you want to push your car right now with 15 minutes to go?
Side by side again for P2. They went up in the GT3s. Nielsen Lawrence was passed by Connor Bloom. This was a slipstream maneuver back on the oval, and it worked to perfection.
I feel like we need more broadcasts in total. Boy, there's a lot of action all over the track right now as we have more guys looking to pass for the lead. Low right now, currently behind Hollander, trying to pick up P4.
Yeah, Hollander losing here, or actually gaining. He just got by Boileau. You're right, too much action to follow along here.
Category, it's about 32 cars, and now we look back to the GT4 category going into the bus stop. We got some more close racing action towards the front of this pack for the GT4s. He's here trying to find his way.
Yeah, just had a pass there between Paul Newton. He got around BJ Fulton for 5th place. That was another slingshot, but this time it was down into the bus stop. You know, we've seen this oval play in such a factor in terms of passing. It seems like they can get it done anywhere. You just got to be careful because it's either sketchy getting down into turn 1 or sketchy getting down into the inner loop there on the back straightaway. It's so hard to take a look, and you know what? It looks like we've had a problem with Michael West. He's falling down through the order. He's sitting in the pits. He looped it around in the bus stop.
Boy, that is a tough one. We haven't really seen too many front runners have to tow, but this one definitely hurts.
These GT4 Caymans, they are so prone to just a little bit of oversteer, especially on corner exit. We'll ride on board with him here. This looked like a perfect job getting through the chicane, through the bus stop, until he got back onto the oval. See what I mean here in a second? There it is. He just can't get it going the way he wants to. He finds himself towing himself, and ultimately he's about to use his first of 2 fast repairs.
Now lap traffic comes into play as Connor Bloom has closed the gap on Lafay here, trying to catch his way up, try to get to the lead here with 13 minutes to go.
Well, this is an outstanding job by Connor Bloom. He started second. He fell to 6th place on lap number 1, and he has caught Gregory Lafougue already. Bloom, we know how quick he is from seeing him in the last season, but just an outstanding job here. Now he's got the task of getting around that bright 19 car, because that is, catching up to him is one thing, getting around him is another.
Now with lap traffic finding its way into the mix, it makes it oh so more difficult to reach into the bus stop. Foog under pressure for the first time today, and Bloom has done a fantastic job. He had some sort of issue lap 1 of this race that slowed him down and has made his way. I believe the gap was even up to 5 seconds or 4 seconds at one point. Now is within a 10th.
Both of these drivers coming from the IMSA iRacing Challenge last Thursday on GSRC. They're going to get around a little bit of lap traffic. It takes away some options here for Connor Bloom as they come across and they start working lap number 11. They're down to less than a dozen minutes left. He's going to take a peek on the outside. How much grip is Lafougue going to have on the inside? Through the first corner, they've got traffic to worry about. That's John Maumeyer in front of him in the GT4, and it's certainly going to hold up Connor Bloom.
Just too narrow. I would hate to go 3 wide in the infield here at Daytona. Slows up Bloom just enough for Lafougue to have a little bit of room. Now has a couple car lengths here, closing out the rest of this infield section.
These GT3 Cup cars through the Western Horseshoe, even though Bloom got slowed down, it seems to have caught back up. They go by Peter Latier, who was off track there in the GT4 class. They're about to come back onto the oval. See what kind of run Bloom can get, because this might be his best opportunity all race long.
Bloom is in a prime position, although Lafougue does a great job coming off that corner into NASCAR 1 and 2.
You're right. That was a good corner exit from Lafougue. That is certainly going to help him. If he can keep doing that, he'll stay out front. But, I mean, there's just so much straightaway here for Connor Bloom to close in. The gap is closed. He is there. He just can't quite get around him heading into the bus stop. They've got to be careful. Bloom needs a masterful exit here. And it looks like Lafougue had a slightly better exit, but Lafougue had a slightly better exit, but Bloom is going to be able to catch him here. Let's see if he's going to have to go around the outside, though.
On the outside, got to go the long way around. Can't quite get door to door, slowly creeping up. At the line, new leader here overall in the GT3 category, but whoa, here we go. 2 wide into turn number 1.
Same as last lap, only this time it's going to be Bloom with quite a bit more of an advantage. They're going to catch a couple of cars in traffic here, but it doesn't matter yet because Bloom's going to have that lead taken away completely. He's able to clear him, but so close down into the International Horseshoe. Goes Lafougue onto the back of that pink number 95. Now they've got a couple of GT4s to make their way through as they get through the kink. Bloom gets through first. Lafougue gets through second. They've got one more to go. That's Jonathan Brell up there in the 081, and I think they're going to catch him right when they get back onto the oval.
Out with the leaders right now in the GT4 category, having an intense battle of their own. Under 10 minutes to go. They're over 2/3 the way through this season opening round for the Porsche Owners Club. But we still got plenty of battling going around all over the track here. Now on the back straightaway. By the way, Jacob Abrams has the lead right now in the GT4 category, but who knows for how much longer. And right on that rear bumper.
Abrams, who had fallen from first, he started in first, fell back to third. Michael West departed the race a little bit early, and Abrams is going to slingshot his way around Savak Fajarian once again. How long is he going to be able to keep that? As I can report back in the GT3 field, Lafougue just had a pretty big slide coming out of the bus stop, so Bloom is going to have that lead pretty decisively for now.
LaFoog now over a second behind. It looks like might have had a little bit of an issue here as we come into the bus stop. Just a place where you can carry a ton of speed, but boy, the rear end just loves to slip on out.
And it loves to get a little bit squirrely, especially when you are overdriving the car here late, which of course, Gregory LaFoog, he's got to do. I mean, he's just seen his lead slip away that he's had for the entire race. We see a replay here. This was back in the GT4s. This was Doug Boccianone. Oh,
wait, that's like almost 3 incidents in a row that look almost whoa.
That is a risky spot to get yourself turned around. Wow. That was John Maumeyer there. Interesting
things that are going on at once. And not a place that you want to go around in. But with that being said, that was also really strange because, I mean, a lot of drivers have been caught coming out of that corner. And we've seen now 2 cars at least head on into the back straightaway wall coming out of the bus stop.
We have. I don't think we've seen someone turn it around by driving backwards for a couple of feet, but well, you know, there's first for everything. And we did note that LaFoog made a bit of a mistake in the bus stop. It seems like he's been able to crawl back in the wake of the 95 car up for the GT3 lead. Bloom might be taking it easy, that or LaFoog is able to catch him here because he is closing in. He's got it down to 3/4 of a second.
Just can't seem to get away from each other. Bloom, though, does have about a 3/4 of a second lead here. But, man, we're coming to the final 6:30 here. Season opening race, and LaFoog's going to have to start and everything that he's got in that car and on those tires make up enough ground because once 2 minutes hits, it's time to start scrambling.
Yeah, it certainly is. Bloom's, he's got a bit of a gap to manage, but, you know, I'd hate to see that bite him when he gets around traffic like this. He's going to have to get on the brakes. That's Savak Fajarian. Second place in the GT4, and look at how much that's going to let LaFoog close in, but he's going to go way too deep into the International Horseshoe.
LaFoog was watching out for that lap car, too.
Savak has damage
in the corner. A troublesome day for a lot of these drivers here at Daytona. A treacherous afternoon here on the virtual iRacing simulator.
He must have picked this up a couple of laps ago because he lost out big time to the lead, Jacob Abrams. Oh, and I think I found it. It is quite a few laps ago. We can't go back to this, but I think he got into the back of Jacob Abrams through the bus stop just a little bit too hard.
This is the part of the race for Abrams. You just got to say, okay, run your race. You got 10 seconds. Your marks, don't make any mistakes. With 5 minutes to go, Abrams in a perfect position to take the season opening win.
I'm amazed that Jacob Abrams has a clean-looking car. He doesn't have any damage to the rear end. Must have hit him in the perfect spot. But yeah, with a 10-second lead now, he's just got to cruise here for the last 5 minutes.
Don't make those mistakes as the tires continue to heat up and wear off, and we have seen so many drivers have issues coming off that chicane. And as we mentioned earlier, 117-degree track temp. It has not went down at all, even with the partly cloudy conditions.
Yeah, we don't have any clock here. No virtual standard time. We're frozen at 3:35 p.m. But that is apparently working out well for Connor Bloom, who we see working the last couple of laps here. He's got a little bit more traffic to get around. This time it's going to go a lot cleaner for them into the International Horseshoe. Still a little bit that's actually Jacob Abrams they just got around, GT4 leader. LaFoog, he's had a couple opportunities to close in. I don't know if he's going to have another opportunity that good.
And that might have been a little bit of Abrams there saying, well, I have a 10-second, well, now it's a 14-second lead, and a way hot into that corner, and around goes LaFoog.
That is that is a full send right there from Gregory LaFoog. There's no other way to put it. Sent it into the Western Horseshoe, putting it all on the line.
Bloom had an issue almost immediately afterwards in the next corner, but did not spin it around, and now he has a huge lead over Nielsen Lawrence.
Yeah, that's exactly what Connor Bloom wanted to see. But you're right, Lafougue lost out to second place with that as well. And Nielsen Lawrence was able to get around, and that's a 2.5 second lead that Connor Bloom's going to have over him.
This group of cars coming down the back straightaway, about 7 cars in a row, mixed in classes. So going to be quite a bit of bobbing and weaving here as we come through NASCAR 3 and 4. Lafougue now, he's got a little bit of a trek himself, 2.5 seconds behind. Nielsen Lawrence now currently maintains P2. Looking back as we have another battle going on, third and fourth, or excuse me, Lafougue here and Hollander now caught up to the rear bumper of the 19 machine.
Yeah, Lafougue, he's got those tires heated up, and that's an opportunity Matt Hollander has been waiting for. He's been struggling with damage himself. And speaking of damage, we don't have to go there, but I can report that Paul Newton got around Savak Fajarian for second place in the GT4 class. Fajarian really struggling to hold on to that car.
Abrams still just has to put on cruise control now, a 20-second lead, GT4. Back to these Cup cars, still a tight battle here for third as we come down to the final 2 minutes of this race. How much do you start to push it at 2 minutes compared to what we were just at a couple minutes ago? Do you start to rev up the intensity to full press yet?
I'd hate to see what full press looks like if we haven't been watching that for the last 28 minutes, but you know, if you're someone like Matt Hollander right now, the last thing you want to do is full send it into the Western Horseshoe like you just saw Gregory Lafougue do. But another thing you don't want to do is just let him have it. I mean, this is an opportunity Matt Hollander, based off of his pace, doesn't really deserve to have. But he's going to have a shot at the podium anyway, and he's got to gobble that up. He's got to take it. He's got to try to reel in the 19 here with the last couple of turns down to 90 seconds left on the clock.
3.3 second lead has escalated for Bloom as we have some bobbing and weaving down the back straightaway. Lafougue trying to keep that third position through the bus stop as Hollander continues to put on the pressure.
They get back onto the oval. Looks like Connor Bloom is coming across the line right now to take his white flag lap. Oh, and a bit of contact for third. Lafougue got hit by Hollander.
Lafougue controls sideways. Around him for the second time in the past couple of laps. Lafougue rolls it sideways and now is going to be stuck in fourth.
Yeah, big difference this time, though. It came with a little bit of help. Hollander gave him a bit of a shove. And he did get the position. Just came with a little bit of aggression. Lafougue, he's going to hold on to fourth place. He's got a long way back to Eric Oviatt in the 23 car.
Rough day for Lafougue after leading so much of the early part of the race, but Bloom had some sort of issue there at the beginning of the race, worked his way all the way back up, put pressure on, and now has a 4-second lead for himself. And then in the GT4s right now, Abrams has included a 22-second lead now over Paul Newton.
It has been smooth sailing for the last couple of miles in this race. You can't say that about the rest of it, though. Connor Bloom getting through the bus stop now for the final time over those flat yellow curbs. Just getting a little extra grip.
By any means, it certainly wasn't easy. Of course, here on iRacing, it can be just as difficult as in real life, but as these drivers from California head out east, it's a 10-round season for the Porsche Owners Club. And for this 10-round season, race number 1 will be taken by Connor Bloom. He takes the win at Daytona.
Back in the GT4s, Jacob Abrams. He's got no competition back there. It's a 22, almost 23-second lead. But just like Connor Bloom, it did not come easy. He was stuck in the draft all day, fell back to third at one point, and within 30 minutes, he's able to rally himself back up to first place. Jacob Abrams going to join the top step of the podium in the GT4 class for this season opener in the Porsche Owners Club Championship.
There's some wild racing as these drivers will continue to close out the rest of the field. More drivers coming by the line. As 911s continue to roll on through.
Everyone's still filing across the line. Jim Slavic, he's going to get across the line, I believe, last on the lead lap. And these cars are finally going to get a chance to cool down.
Jarian makes his way across the line. Rennie Burns now doing so as well. As these drivers finish up the first race of the season. Boy, a tough one here at Daytona. Plenty of drivers had issues here tonight, Nick.
Yeah, absolutely. These drivers going to get a chance to calm down, take a breath. We are going to do the same here at the Global Sim Racing Channel. We'll be back after the quick break with a full rundown of results and driver interview.
This one was a tough one for a lot of these drivers, but if you guys do get to come out victorious in the first race of the season for the Porsche Owners Club Sim Racing League, here as we take a look at the results. In the first race of the season, Connor Bloom works his way to get this victory. Nielsen Lawrence is out in second. Matt Hollander works his way up to third. Gregory Lafougue, and just a lot of tough moments, but ends up in fourth. Eric Ovlat in fifth. Dominic Cicero in sixth. Michael Bolton ends the night in seventh. On Horvath in eighth. Alan Stad in ninth. And Jim Slavic rounds out your top 10.
Rennie Bruns, the last GT3 car to finish on the lead lap with those guys. Then it goes to 12th place overall, which is Jacob Abrams on top of the GT4, the Cayman class. He's going to get the first win of the season over there. He finishes a huge margin in front of Paul Newton. Jonathan Brell, who had a very quiet night, but he's going to steal a podium. BJ Fulton's going to come home in fourth. Savak Fajarian, a tough break for him as well. He'll wind up in 16th overall. Ted Bonkenberg, Chris Lewis, John Baumeier, and Mark Rondeau will round out the top 20.
Look more to the rest of the field. Peter Latier in 21st. Ron Palmer 22nd. Michael Westman had a lot of good runs, but ends up 23rd. Michael Robin 24th. Doug Baxione in 25th. Thomas Coilo ends up 26th. Rob Crocker 27th. Hans Alehi in 28th. Justin Krickenberger in 29th. And Jad Duncan in 30th.
And then just one lone driver behind them, Justin Heindel, who wrecked, I believe, on the very first lap of this race and put it behind the wall. Nico Silva, Anthony Paggio, and Lane McNeil did not start for this race. But Devin, we've got some drivers to talk to, and you're up first talking to our overall race winner, Connor Bloom.
Boy, a lot of guys had some issues throughout this race, and that does include your winner, Connor Bloom. First question, what happened? I believe that was the first lap of the race. You're running second and coming through the tri-oval. That car was slow. What was going on there?
Hey, what's up, guys? I actually had a little track limit issue, so I had to give back about a second and a half, which put me back to sixth place, but I was able to make a good comeback there.
So take me through that comeback. You had to go through quite a few cars, including Foog, who had such a great race going on. What did it take to run all the way back up? It was like 4 or 5 seconds behind LaFleur before you eventually end up catching him and taking the overtake.
Yeah, it was pretty tough with lap traffic. I was just kind of taking my time, and I knew I had time, so I was just making smart moves and didn't want Greg to get too far away, and eventually caught him and made the pass.
Take me through some of that battle. It got a little bit intense up there. You guys a little overshooting the corners here and there. You guys were going at it.
Yeah, these Cup cars are beasts. There's no ABS, so you're constantly modulating lockup. And yeah, we were going a little deep and ran wide in a couple corners, but it all worked out. I'm not sure what happened to Greg at the very end there, but yeah, it was a great race.
Boy, that was a great race. Who do you got to thank for this performance here, the first win of the season?
Oh, I got to thank my parents for sure for putting up with all the late night practice. Yeah, I'm just stoked to come out with a win again. I've had a rough couple of races the last few weeks.
Boy, how about the win? The first of the season. It's going to be a 10-round season. Plenty of races still to go. How do you keep this up week after week? You got 9 more to go here as we race every other week this series.
Just lots of practice. Try not to get too burnt out on it. I keep it for I do more night racing than anything. But yeah, just lots of practice with all my friends, and I'm having a great time.
Connor Bloom takes the season opening win. Congrats on the win, Connor.
Thank you. Thank you.
Right now, let's hand it on back over to Nick Schmeg with our next driver. How about the winner of the next class?
Absolutely. A GT4 overall winner goes to Jacob Abrams. He's going to stand at the top step of the podium, but Jacob, that wasn't without a fight, just like we saw with Connor Bloom. You fell back to 3rd place, I believe it was, early on, and then had to rally your way back up to the top spot.
Yeah, that was a tough race. I knew going into it, the key was to make as few mistakes as possible, and I committed the mortal sin of going into the grass in the bus stop. I don't know, 3 laps in, and I was a little worried. I wouldn't be able to catch him after I did that, but it looked like Seb and Ost were making a couple mistakes here and there, and I was still in the draft and able to get back up to him, and yeah, that was tough though.
Absolutely. You were able to utilize that draft. Did you have too many problems dealing with the other class? I don't think I saw the GT4 leaders really having too many problems with traffic, but how was traffic not just dealing with other classes, but in your own class? You were always surrounded by cars with your little draft train there.
I don't think I had the GT3s come up on me until I was well clear of Sev. I think I had a 10-second gap at that point. So once I had that gap, I realized I was just going to take it easy and let the GT3s go by, whenever they got up next to me and not risk making any contact. And, I could almost coast to the finish at that point. So, it was risk mitigation and, really wasn't too worried about traffic at all.
Yeah, definitely. And it worked out for you. Now, we started the season off in Daytona, so in fitting IMSA fashion, we're headed to Sebring in a couple of weeks' time. That's a track much more demanding on the cars and the drivers as well. How are you feeling about going in there with a lot of momentum? And ultimately, how are you looking for the rest of the season here?
I felt pretty good going into Daytona. I was able to get a lot of practice, but Sebring's never quite been my track. I think I'm going to need to spend a bit of time there over the next few weeks to figure out the car setup more than anything. But I do feel like I finally have the car setup in general figured out with this car. So I think, a little bit of time spent should gain some decent results. And I'm, feeling pretty good about, my momentum carrying out through the next couple races. So we'll see where it goes.
Certainly a statement win for you today. Hopefully that momentum does indeed carry over for you. But before we let you go, is there anyone you want to give a shout out to?
No, I don't know. I guess works to motorsport, and yeah, that's about it. And then yeah, I sponsor myself, so that's all the shout outs I've got to give.
Well, maybe if you keep up your winning ways, you'll get some nice decals on that car. But Jacob, thanks for stopping by, and you have a good rest of your night and a good rest of your couple of weeks until we see you in Florida again.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
It's Jacob Abrams, their winner in the GT4 Cayman class tonight, and another interviewer joined up with Devin. It's Nielsen Lawrence coming home second place in the GT3 Cup class.
How about that? Started out fifth, comes home in second. Lap one was fun. No, turn one was fun. Listen, what was your view when everyone goes three wide into turn one in the first race of a new season at Daytona?
Yeah, I really didn't see it. I kind of glanced up in the mirror and I noticed that somebody was running me pretty hard. I was just trying to stay out of it and got back on the throttle nice and hard, and the car hooked up for me. I did a lot of practice on cold tires, so that helped me out. Kind of shot me up toward the front, and made it work.
There's plenty of intensity throughout this 30-minute race. Plenty of issues for a lot of drivers. What was the most difficult track, or what was the most difficult point of this track for you, especially when it came later into this race?
This track's, I've practiced it enough, and I don't really have too much of a hard time. I noticed when I started pushing the car a little bit more, turn one was pretty difficult. If you didn't get the braking quite right, the front end would get really, really skatey on you, and it wouldn't want to turn into the corner. So that was kind of the biggest problem corner of this.
Sebring coming up here in 2 weeks. Of course, these races are about half the length of what we had in the 4-race stretch last season. You expect the intensity to keep on going so high like it did today. What are you looking forward to when we hit Sebring here in 2 weeks?
Yeah, the intensity is going to remain high. You got guys like Connor Bloom and Gregory LaFouge who just have insane speed. Matt Hollander's right back there with them. So I'm really looking forward to Sebring. It's a little bit different of a track, a little bit more bumpy. It's going to be harder to keep these GT3 Cup cars planted and gripped up. So looking forward.
Second overall, and of course, second in the GT3 category. Congrats, Nielsen, and we look forward to seeing you here in a couple more weeks.
Thank you, guys.
All right, then. Looks like we do still have, I believe, another one here. Yep, another one interview. Here is Nicholas now. He's going to go grab Paul Newton.
I have caught up to Paul Newton indeed. Paul, you had, I got to be honest, a pretty quiet race, a little bit away from the camera. We didn't see you too much. You did, though, work your way up through the field very nicely, and you wound up in second.
Yeah, thank you. It was a little bit action-packed on that first lap. I just got in there really hard, right next to Jacob, and I feel bad. I kind of crowded him a little. I tried to give him room, and I just spun myself out right in front of the whole pack, and I was just so embarrassed that I did that.
Well, you got up through the field. How was the traffic back where you were? Jacob up front said he didn't have too much traffic to worry about, but you were further back through the field. What was getting up through all the GT4 traffic like for you?
Yeah, everybody's being really considerate. This is a really wide track, so there's always somewhere to pass. I want to thank Philip Parnagian for getting me involved in this club, and I want to thank Fowler Packing and Peel's California Mandarins for letting me run their beautiful colors. And I want to congratulate Jacob on a great race today. I just never saw him after that first turn, so he was gone.
It is a beautiful paint scheme you've got on that GT4, I've got to be honest.
Thank you.
Certainly made your sponsors proud, Paul. But thank you so much for stopping by, and hopefully we get to see you have some more success similar to that up in Sebring.
Yeah, thank you.
That's Paul Newton stopping by, chatting with us after finishing second place in the GT4. Last interview of the night, it's Matt Hollander, another GT3 driver, but he's going to be the one finishing down in third place. Devin?
That grabs the last spot on the podium tonight at Daytona. We talked about the intensity. We talked about how a lot of drivers had some issues. What was the most difficult part for you tonight when it came to testing the track limits here at Daytona?
Well, I think coming out of that bus stop there, you really had to be careful not to run it into the grass because of the time penalties that the iRacing will associate with it. So just tried to stay out of that. I know Connor early on in the race actually faced that and was able to get around him. But, just tire temperatures of this track was really difficult. Came in, I was looking at the tire temps. I mean, they were almost at 300 degrees. So, I mean, rear grip was really, really tough.
Then coming from 6th to 3rd, obviously it is a half-hour race, so there is some time there. But what did you have to focus on, keep on moving your way through the field?
Well, I think it was just trying to stay out of trouble, stay consistent. I think I caught a lucky break there at the beginning. I knew Eric Oviatt was going to be a pretty tough challenger, and it looked like he had an issue there at the start of the race. So that was a little bit off my back, I guess you could say. Towards the end there, at the end of the race, getting a chance to battle with Greg, that was interesting.
To get up on the podium, though, who do you got to thank for your performance here tonight?
Well, first I want to thank Century Financial Consultants, my mom and dad. Big shout out to Dan Espizio over at the Speed Gallery for helping me with car setup. And I guess a sorry to Greg for the end of the race, that little bit of contact we had.
Hollander brings it home in 3rd in the season opening race. That'll do it. A very fun, interesting night. Nick, what do you see carrying over here from what we saw at Daytona as we move into Sebring?
Well, a lot of aggressiveness. I think drivers drivers have made some mistakes tonight. A lot of them came out on top. A lot of them overcame some mistakes. And ultimately, I think what I'm looking forward to the most, and I think what everyone should be looking forward to the most, is seeing all that sweet revenge come back in play, because a lot of drivers are, they're going to come back with a fire under their seats, and they are going to want to come back stronger than ever. Drivers with momentum versus drivers desperately searching for momentum. It's going to be fun to see in Sebring, and I'm excited to get that going up in 2 weeks.
Oh, yeah, going to be fun at Sebring in 2 weeks. Of course, we got to give a big thanks to everyone who helps us put this on, including Sunset Mortgage, Octavio Tequila, and Century Financial Consultants. And, of course, a big thank you to the Porsche Owners Club for putting on this race and letting us be a part of it. And thanks to the companies that provide the software and the hardware for our broadcast listed here on your screen. And also an additional thanks to Jude Lalonde, who provides our wonderful music. See the screen for how to get a hold of more of her great work. And, of course, a big thanks to the team here tonight, Nick and the producer, Joe. If you'd like to find out more about GSRC, including upcoming races, you can find it at globalsimracingchannel.com, or you can check it out on our social media on Twitter at GSR Channel, on Facebook at Global Sim Racing Channel, and on Instagram at GSRC_Graham. And if you'd like to support the channel, go check out our merchandise store at gsrc.storeenvy.com. The link is in the description below. Don't forget to head on over to our YouTube page, hit that big red subscribe button so you never miss a moment here on the Global Sim Racing Channel. Our next race here for the Porsche Owners Club Sim Racing League, June 1st, 2 Mondays from now at Sebring International Raceway, the international course, as we will race every other Monday. And of course, so many other great races here on GSRC. You see them on your screen right now, including some payment sprint cars. We got Grand National Series, we got Dirt Series, everything that you need. They're all listed here on the screen, so be sure to check those out and mark them down on your calendar. Once again, thanks to everyone, and until next time, race clean, race hard, and we'll see you on the track.